Arming kuring angkara akarana karenan marti siwi.
Moon round flat Earth following the development of science that is developing very rapidly. Interpretation of science about the cosmos at one time can be wrong in the next. The moon is clearly round and about the Earth there is a flat publish. What's behind this? Current scientific analysis theory of the formation of the moon. Eduard Roche. In this theory he explained that the moon was created because it was condensed from matter and then rotated like a hot dust cloud that created the Earth. George Darwin. The moon is gradually moving away, where at first the Earth and the moon are one celestial body that is fused. Then the Earth rotates with an increasingly faster rotation so that a small part of the Earth is separated and then forms the moon. Thomas Jackson C. This theory explains that Earth's gravity attracts the moon that was formed in different places in the solar system. Big collision theory. This theory was put forward in 1974, which tells that the moon is estimated to have been formed in about 4.5 billion years. The moon was formed from the debris that was released after a celestial body the size of Mars collided with Earth. The flake is called the The collision between the two occurred large enough to cause shards of the Earth and the These fragments are in the form of matter around the Earth. The material is then bound by gravity to form the moon. Even this theory is not yet valid. If this theory is true, of course Theia, who is considered a fragment of the Earth, must have the same material structure as the Earth, which is considered a celestial object the size of Mars collides with the Earth. Where is the big object currently? What planet he was to be? Science provides no explanation. If it is true that fragments from the collision of the Earth and Theia formed the moon, why did only one become the moon? Did not millions of pieces occur during the collision? Until now science has not been able to confirm the formation of the moon. We look at this interpretation of science about the cosmos at one time can be wrong at a later time, following the development of science and advanced discoveries in the next period. So what is wrong is the tafsir about the ancient civilizations of the archipelago. This prosperous nation of the archipelago has experienced very high progress in the past, progress beyond today's science. The advanced civilization of the archipelago left the mega sites on Earth as well as the philosophy of its teachings that spread almost 3/4 of the world, coloring the land of Arabia and India. In fact, the teachings originated from this land of the archipelago. Currently the teachings are being claimed at Borobudur, where the origin of the teachings came from. Our logical reasoning has not been able to reveal it, because logical reasoning, logic and logic is not even true or not. The decision is based on the input that enters our brain, so the labeling of Borobudur based on the teachings that were born in India is considered correct, because the input and publications about it have entered the very depths of Dogma in our brains. And if Borobudur is based on the original teachings of the archipelago, then it is considered definitely wrong. Even though the evidence is clear scientifically, what has been achieved proves and disproves labeling. Other thing, the notion of science is currently in a deadlock during research, and it is only considered science if it is only material and material, limited to the senses only by the 5 senses. While the scientific input is in sensory boundaries, plus it is flooded with millions of input which must be uniform and must be correct, even with the basis and reason, he said. How about the interpretation of the Holy Book about the moon? The Holy Book must be true. It remains only the interpretation and science of knowledge that must prove this. How was the form of Swastika, the symbol of the archipelago's ancestor, found on the moon? When did Hitler go to the moon? Take a look at this. Hermeneutics is a type of philosophy that studies the interpretation of meaning. The name hermeneutics is taken from the Greek verb hermeneuin, which means interpret, give understanding, or translate. If traced further, the verb is taken from the name Hermes, the god of knowledge in Greek mythology, who served as a giver of understanding to humans regarding the message conveyed by the gods on Olympus. The function of Hermes is important because if there is a misunderstanding of the message of the gods, the consequences will be fatal for all mankind. Hermes must be able to interpret or adapt a message into the language used by the listener. Since then, Hermes has become a symbol of an ambassador who is burdened with a certain mission. The success of the mission depends entirely on the way in which the message is conveyed. Therefore, hermeneutics, is ultimately defined as the process of changing something or a situation of ignorance into understanding. As a scientific term, hermeneutics was introduced for the first time since the emergence of the basic book of logic, Hermeneutics by Aristotle. Since then, the concepts of logic and the use of rationality have been introduced as the basis for hermeneutical action. This concept was carried over to the traditions of several religions when entering the medieval age. Hermeneutics is defined as the act of understanding the message conveyed by God in His holy book in a rational manner. In the Christian tradition, since the 3rd century AD, the Church, which is thick with the peripatetic tradition, uses the concept of Aristotle's offer to interpret the Bible. Whereas in the Islamic philosophy tradition, the Kalam ulama use the term takwil instead of hermeneutics to explain the verses Untitled. So God's message must be conveyed correctly, as well as rationally. Rational and objective understanding the message conveyed by God in His holy book. Current scientists who are rational science and scholars, religion, reveal the message of God below. Sad. 37. And we also subject him to him, Satan, Shaitan, all are skilled builders and are good at diving. What buildings are built on land, also under the sea, built by genies who are good at diving? Is the building on land is Borobudur, and the one under the sea is Jayapura wall? How? The science of Hermeneutica, as well as religion, answer or interpret God's meaning in the word above. Another thing that needs to be examined by Muslim scholars is to reveal the word that is always close to moon is Jala. What does the word mean? Is it the same as the words create and built? How is the form of Su Astika, ancestral Nusantara, found on the moon, which this interpreted was the act of Hitler? Scientific skepticism uses critical thinking and proof by induction when it tries to counter insubstantial claims. When contradiction can be reached logically, the assumption has been proven wrong, so the statement is true. Proof by contradiction, or reductio ad absurdum, is not a wrong argument otherwise, if done right, is a valid argument. Write publications on flat earth are confronting the logic of static thinking against the dogma of the interpretation of the scriptures, both of which are not necessarily true. True. Back History of Indonesia by Santosaba